Okay, John Bishop and Jason Frandi, welcome to Playfly Playmakers. We have another edition today, and I'm excited about this one, folks, because we're going to be delving into something that seems to get asked about at every cocktail party I go to, whether the people are within the sports ecosystem or not. Everyone seems to have an opinion, a thought, a concept I've read about, but we're going to delve into the world of NIL today in a pretty deep way with a couple of subject matter experts here at Playfly. So with that, just quickly before we even get in, why don't we, John and Jason, give a little bit on your backgrounds, and then we'll get the ball rolling here. John, why don't you go first?
Sure. John Bishop, lead Playfly Max, joined the company about a year ago. I was previously at the NBA league office in Teambo, consulting with teams across all three leagues. Prior to that, I was in minor league baseball for a long time. I also had a cup of coffee in NASCAR. I spent a little time there and actually got my start in sports in college athletics, working in the athletic department while I was a student at Texas A&M.
Nice. And you're so dedicated to this world that you actually moved to College Station and are making a go of it there in a college town.
Something like that.
Yeah,
Yes. But yeah, I'm a big fan.
good. Love it. Love it. Jason, how about you?
Well, thanks for having me, Craig. So, been with Playfly for 2 years now, overseeing national sales for Playfly Sports Properties. So, our college and high school multimedia rights division, and my entire background is college multimedia rights. Was previously at the Big 12 for 4 years, leading sponsorship sales efforts there, and Penn State prior to that as well, which is now a proud member of the Playfly family too. So, that's a little bit about me, and excited to dive in more to the conversation today with you, Craig.
Good, good. So, and we have what I love, a little bit of a difference in background too, of John is running our Playfly Max product in NIL and solely dedicated, thinks 24/7 about it, I'm sure. And Jason, I know you got a broader perspective in the fact that you're working with John, but also with our multimedia rights group and just broadly thinking about monetization efforts, maximizing that for our partners across sponsorship and also NIL. So we're going to delve into some good questions, I think, hopefully here today. Why don't we start super broad? Like any good lawyer, I'm going to start out wide and I'm going to drill down and get you guys to give us some really good information. So at a very top line level, why are you so passionate and why did you build a career now in the college sports space? So Jason, since you went second the first time, why don't you answer that one? But what was it that compelled you to make a career out of this portion of the sports ecosystem?
Sure. No, I think, full transparency, it was a love for sports at first. I didn't know that I was going to fall in love with working in college until I got into it. But I think what's one of the best things from my perspective, selling the product, is that you will always care about your school, your community, the memories that you built when you were an undergrad. I'm a proud Villanova grad and I've now also married into a Penn State family. So two Playfly properties right there. And, Villanova basketball has a rich history, but hasn't been in the tournament for the past few years. But it doesn't matter. There's still that avidity for the Villanova brand and Villanova basketball. And you saw that with the IP and the AT&T and Nova Knicks commercial and how that spiraled into something so much bigger once the Pope is now a Villanova grad too. Just the storylines that you can create for brands when it comes to being a partner in college sports, I feel like it's just unparalleled anywhere else. So I didn't necessarily enter into the career because of college specifically, but that's all I've ever done since I started down this career track, and I've fallen in love with it because I think there's just such a uniqueness to how the positioning, the value proposition of why college, and how it's impactful for our brand partners.
You're about as passionate of a college business person that I know, so you're doing it well. John, different, right, for you coming from, and to your point on your background, coming outside and making actually a decision to enter into it at this particular point in time, which people have talked about as transformational, evolutionary, disruptive, all these adjectives. Why were you so compelled to move towards college?
Yeah, I've been with the NBA league office for 13 years, as I mentioned, and I thought I may just run it all out there. It was a great job. It was a job that I was really passionate about and working with our teams. But when Christy Hedgepeth, who I'd worked with there at the NBA and now leads Playfly Sports Properties, called and talked to me about the opportunity, I thought, wow, this is really an exciting area to be. And, really these next several years are going to be this transformative time in college athletics. And there's an opportunity to be a part of that. And so that was the appeal. Certainly, getting into the space, and it's been a challenging space from the standpoint of NIL is evolving every day, but that's what makes it so exciting. It makes you get up every day, knowing that, wow, there's going to be new challenges today that many people have never seen before. And so I really enjoyed, this time in this first year. And I think if you look at where it's headed, it creates a lot of excitement for me personally, knowing that this is the career that I'm in, and really, just kind of looking ahead. It's going to be a pretty fun type time period coming up in college.
No doubt. Yeah. Buckle up. So, uh, one of the things that I do, like a bad host here, I'm realizing our audience, everyone's heard of it. It was my take up front, but it's name, image, and likeness. So we're backing into it from the beginning, but that idea that NIL is here to stay, I think, is unquestioned. The idea that athletes will get compensated while they're in college in more of a transparent way is also in front of us. We'll talk about health center here in a little bit and what we expect out of that and the drivers for our business. I think my first question for you on that front, though, is now that it is here and we've been around, this is not new. If you're a student athlete, and we'll start from their perspective, what is it that they are thinking today? I need to get better educated still. I've got to figure out more ways to increase my social profile, to increase my, in theory, my value. I've got to find connectivity to companies like Playfly to make sure that my monetization opportunities are there, transparent and clear, and they're in front of me. What is it that a student athlete might be thinking about today, and how are we trying to help?
Sure. House changes everything because for the last several years, most of the revenue that's been driven in the NIL space has come via donor, and that will change with the House settlement, and we have a new era that's upon us that is going to be revenue share for the student athletes, where they're going to participate in the same way that professional athletes participate in the success of the sport in which they play, and share in revenues. But in order for them to really go beyond revenue share, it's going to be through true business purpose, fair market value, NIL deals. And that's the way the setup is going forward. And so, just like you said, if they can increase their social following, if they can, work on enhancing their brand, and be someone that marketers are looking towards as someone that they'd like to associate with, in this college space, then that's going to be where the focus should lie. Since really the donor money is that's going to go away, or at least kind of go towards the revenue share model, where they can really kind of have make a difference, is going to be in the true business purpose NIL space.
Yeah, so I'm glad you delved a little bit deeper. I was going to interrupt you, and I'm glad I didn't. But that idea of the corporate base is, in theory, going to get more in-kind benefit, and in theory, again, be more of a marketing practice, which is, I think, where things originally were set up, and then the donor program will go into something that'll look more like an endowment of some form or fashion, and getting some more sustainable models. I think in both cases, the idea is to build something that feels sustainable, and I think we feel at Playfly, like the sustainable way to do this is to get to that corporate base, have them see the value of the IP of a student athlete, and get associated with them, and get some brand benefit out of it as well. Jason, from your take, early stages, again, it's not new, but it is new-ish on some of the corralling that we've been able to do on campuses, and then with the student athletes, and then with the brands in markets. What's the early reaction? Is it a favorable reaction from the advertising and marketing community?
I think early on when NIL first started, there was a lot of interest and curiosity, but there was still a hesitancy. It's, hey, they're college kids. Can we trust this college kid with my brand? But in a very short amount of time, and especially with House settling here shortly, you have brands proactively coming to us. We're having high level brand conversations with the traditional sponsorship elements of IP and TV visible signage, all the things that you typically see in your college sponsorship deal. But it's not, hey, we're kind of dipping our toe in the water on NIL. It's NIL should be a part of the conversation.
Yeah.
It should be part of the consideration for us as a brand if we're going to get the most out of partnering with X, Y, and Z
And
school.
why, Jason, go one layer deeper there. Why do you say that? The
There's
data
just
supports it, and what are they getting?
the data certainly is starting to support it. Nearly two thirds of marketers say influencer created content outperforms brand created content. So we're seeing just the engagement rates with influencer content, student athlete content for our brand partners. And brands are now dedicating separate marketing budgets for it. It's not just this is our sports marketing budget, it's sports marketing, and this is what we're dedicating towards influencer marketing too, because we're creating this authentic connection with the fans, with the schools, more so than we could with just the IP access that we had previously. We're now able to dive a little bit deeper and tell unique stories based on the backgrounds of the student athletes that are now advocating for our brands in the market. Um, Brands are
We,
certainly
we,
taking that
we,
shift to saying we need to be a part of this, as opposed to previously we're not sure if this is right for us.
yeah, we've seen it for years in pro. It just wasn't allowable. So now we're reconditioning the marketplace to understand if you're a marketer, your brand benefit will increase if you grab the IP of the student athlete, make more of a connection, and you're going to get looked at more favorably by fans and consumers, viewers, however you want to look at it, and get better business results. So look, it does make sense.
Greg, I'll mention, as Jason talked about the engagement rate, we have a significant supporter at Penn State, West Shore Home. They're a partner, but they also invest in the NIL space. And they've done this for a number of reasons. One is to, they want to have a higher engagement rate on their social posts. They also want to really kind of highlight their cause marketing initiatives and bring awareness to the nonprofits that they work with. And if you look at the work that they've done on their social posts, their typical posts, I think the last 30 posts that they've put up have generated about 350 likes total, maybe 35 comments. The last 30 posts in which they've used Penn State student athletes as brand ambassadors to drive home those areas have done over 10,000 likes, over 2,500 comments. It's a game changer when you talk about engagement rate. Engagement rate for when you use athletes has about an 800% lift over a normal post. And they're seeing that play out at Penn State and specifically with West Shore Home.
That's incredible. I mean, and most marketers, I don't care if you're at the agency level or the client directly, would take an 8 to 10% lift, and they would actually change marketing plan. They're talking about an 800% lift. So we are still in those early stages where we're seeing that just accelerant that could be caused by this. Maybe let's stay in that for a second. So you're a marketer, you're watching this podcast, and you're thinking, there's probably some do's and don'ts, rights and wrongs. What have we learned so far? Like, what are the things I would say if you're advising a brand side? Like, how do you get involved? What would you exactly do, and what components would be necessary to make it successful?
Yeah, I would say you're seeing brands use the student athletes in the best brands are using in some form of call to action. The West Shore Home example that I was just using, they were doing football giveaways as a way for you to, if you sign up and want to hear more information, you can also be included in the drawing for autographed footballs from some of the stars on Penn State's football team. And so those call to actions really have an impact. I would say that's important. Certainly selecting the right student athletes that do have a following and that are what maybe a little more public facing certainly makes a difference. But yeah, I think that we're seeing marketers really kind of lean into how do we use these student athletes that have a following and then get them to participate in this call to action.
Jason, maybe expounding upon that. I think the typical thing, if you're a marketer looking at it, you're going, well, yes, football, sure, that makes sense. Maybe college basketball, maybe the new phenomenon around college women's basketball.
Mhm.
But we're finding that there's interest dependent upon the school, the level of engagement of the fans, but even beyond those traditional powerhouse sports, correct?
Oh, no question. I mean, especially with women's sports, women's basketball, women's volleyball, and in particular right now too is really blowing up. You saw what happened with our team at Nebraska when they hosted the outdoor game at Memorial Stadium. Over 90,000 people showed up in attendance for that. So the power of women's sports, it's just giving brands more unique avenues to invest within college. It's not just the same old, well, we're going to invest in football because that's where all the eyeballs are. That's not necessarily true anymore. There's people tuning in and watching women's basketball and in volleyball, and these student athletes, these female student athletes, are seeing tremendous engagement rates as well. Sometimes 75% more than their male counterparts. So it's really important for brands to not short sell themselves on the opportunity by understanding the full breadth of what college sports offers. And I think that's another tremendous thing about what we offer in the college space, is that it's not just one sport, it's not just one season. The ability to tell your brand story year round with different athlete personalities in football, in basketball, and baseball, and softball, it truly is a year round opportunity if you're leveraging the opportunity the right way.
John, if we stay in this same area and the marketers are thinking about, I'm going to get involved, I know I'm going to make a commitment in this space. What are the things that the student athletes that we're finding through our experimentation the first few years here is something that they actually like to do, lean into, so you're not getting that sort of resistance? It might be a paycheck, but it might not be something they want to do. Like, what are the things they actually are looking to do, and they'll be seemingly more successful, more organic, to get the best results?
Yes, the best results are going to come through these authentic partnerships where the student athlete actually uses the product, and the student athlete is a fan of whatever brand that they're getting behind. And so I think you're seeing that. You think about traditional multimedia rights categories. You think about hospitals and banking and telecom, and you look at where student athletes and influencers bring in all new categories because of the interest level of that student athlete, but also who they're speaking to. They're speaking to other 18 to 25-year-olds, and you're going to gravitate to fashion, beauty. There's going to be travel. You're also seeing food and beverage. So those are like the top categories that you're seeing engage with the student athletes for NIL, and so they lean into those because they're authentically using those products each and every day.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, let's do this. We've gone this far into the podcast, and we haven't really delved into the house element. That's something that's on everybody's mind, or they've at least read enough to be dangerous. We have a couple experts online here, and you guys are voracious readers and well connected in the space. John, I'll do first part to you, second part to Jason. First part is, what is it? The house settlement, what's going to be expected? What do we anticipate at the time of this recording? The deal isn't done. It's expected. We have pretty broad parameters, but we still know what we expect to happen. And then Jason, second part for you, what does that in turn mean then for how we're going to approach the marketplace and try to enhance the capabilities that we've got on campuses, and then also potentially address even more of the concerns that the athletic directors has for increased revenue. So revenue for you, and then if you can, John, just broad framing of what's about to go down.
Sure. So the house settlement will essentially rule on the state of college athletics and these student athletes, should they be compensated. And the settlement decides that the answer is yes. And you're going to see an impact on athletic departments in a pretty significant way. So the back payment for the settled class action group is going to cost your typical Power 4 school about $2 million a year for the next decade. In addition to that, revenue share begins for all the student athletes that are going forward. And that's going to happen to the tune of, again, a Power 4 school is likely going to do a full rev share, which is $20.5 million. That's the cap on it. And for the most part, you're going to see schools send that out in a few different tranches. So 75% goes to football, about 20% goes to basketball, and 3/4 of that's going to go to men's basketball. And then about 5% they're going to be spread around other sports. And each school is going to handle it a little bit differently, but in general, it'll look like that. Also, schools are it's going to have schools now be able to have the ability to fully fund scholarships. So, the college baseball tournament's going on right now. As it stands today, there's a scholarship limit of 11.7 scholarships. Starting post house, 34 scholarships can be fully funded by the athletic department. And that's going to have an impact across all sports. Every sport's going to have an increase in limits. You're also seeing schools like my alma mater, Texas A&M, who announced last week they're going to fund every one of those scholarships in full, which could mean another $7-8 million. All of a sudden, we're talking about $30 million in new expenses for a Power Four school. And so when they look at Playfly, it's like, okay, well, how can you help us here? One, we still need to be competitive in going and securing NIL deals like we've just talked about with our student athletes and doing them under these new rules. So I'll talk about the rules in a second. But we also are going to be looking at all of these new expenses. Can we be looking to Playfly to generate incremental revenues, new MMR revenues as well? And so that'll be a big area of focus, not only for us, but for the schools. Getting back real quick to what I was referring to with how NIL deals will look going forward. Now there's going to be a clearinghouse. Deloitte is going to manage this clearinghouse. The clearinghouse will look at all NIL deals over $600, and so they'll put it through, a algorithm, and it'll turn out whether it's going to be approved, denied, or maybe even be amendable. However, those deals, we don't really know exactly what kind of feedback we're going to get yet on what's approved and what's not. And that needs to be determined. We'll see once the deals begin being submitted. What we do know is Deloitte has shared that the collective deals in the past, which are mostly donor deals, 70% of those would have been denied. However, the true brand deals, like we expect to see going forward, 90% of those would be approved. So again, we're moving into a new era where true brand deals are going to lead the way.
I do love that we proactively at Playfly actually had our insights folks, our data scientists, and our evaluation teams come up with values against these in-kind components. So we're not waiting for something to happen so that we can be extremely active. I think it's important that we help our partners do that. Jason, in that vein, what are we ready to do, and how do you think that actually accelerates the opportunity for the student athlete in particular, then maybe subsequently for marketers around it?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, just Playfly being proactive and making sure we were ready for this moment certainly sets myself up for success when I'm having these brand conversations, because this is what we've done to be prepared for when this happens. Is we have John and the Playfly Max team and a slew of experts who understand what NIL was and where it's going now. So it makes it that much easier to go to a brand and be that trusted expert in the marketplace and say, this is what we've done. This is what we're ready to do for you moving forward. Just that level of confidence, and for our school partners as well too, knowing that they have us as their trusted partner, and we're having those conversations with our brand decision makers. It sets us up for success in driving big numbers that these schools probably don't have all the answers of. How am I going to fill that gap? Those millions of dollars that I'm now going to be responsible for moving forward once the house settlement lands. It's daunting, but it's also a tremendous opportunity that we're certainly looking forward to tackling on our end. But I think for a student athlete's perspective too, it gives them so much more opportunity moving forward for themselves, for their careers, knowing that they have this powerhouse in Playfly and brands who are willing to invest in them moving forward. We actually had Bruce Pearl on during Playfly Week earlier today before we were recording this, and he made a comment that really stuck with me about the impact that we have right now in the marketplace. He said what Playfly is doing for Auburn is life changing, and I truly believe what we're doing in bringing these NIL deals to the table. It is life changing for the student athletes that we're impacting on the ground at our school partners. And I don't know that we stop and think about that all the time, but that really resonated with me during the conversation earlier today.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, right? The stats haven't changed on a small percentage that actually can make a career out of sports after, in a professional way, on the court, on the field, on the ice, whatever it might be. And yet, these student athletes are marketable for 1 to 4 years while they're on campus, and we're providing that opportunity for them to actually find, in many cases, meaningful monies that kind of at minimum defray some costs and maybe at maximum set them up well for post college. So yeah, it does feel better, right? It feels good as we're starting to get our arms around all these things. If you had to predict, right, let's sort of get towards a wrap up here on this topic. But if you had to predict, let's say over the course of the next year or two, what do you think is going to be the biggest development that's going to happen that is different than what's today? Like what do you think is going to feel different? What we'll be talking about at the cocktail parties in a year or two about NIL.
I think even before NIL came to be, the one constant it felt like in college athletics was nobody ever wanted to be the first, but you always wanted to be the second. Everybody was always timid or scared to do things differently than we ever had previously. But that can't be the status quo anymore. I expect schools clamoring to be the first to do X, Y, and Z, the new thing that's driving incremental NIL revenue and supporting their brand partners. I expect this sense of urgency. I feel like I haven't felt in my 12 years in the business in the college multimedia rights space. I think if there isn't that sense of urgency, people will start to get left behind. So I'm certainly excited for the opportunity that we can bring to the marketplace and the conversations to come. And we don't have all the answers yet, but I expect better collaboration, better ways to support the student athletes and our university partners moving forward, because that's just the necessity of the times that we currently live.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. John?
Yeah, I think if you look today, influencer marketing is a $30 billion industry. In 2028, it should surpass $50 billion. So this isn't going away. Influencer marketing is something that maybe the laggards will kind of catch up with, but everybody's going to be doing it, and they're going to be doing it because it does all the things that we want in a partnership. It does it better. It amplifies everything that we do. I mean, from an authentication standpoint, from an integration. I mean, be able to put a student athlete at the hub of the wheel, so to speak, right, and playing off of that as your ambassador is something that we expect more and more brands to do. It increases sales. It amplifies. There's great brand transparency. It creates loyalty. Like all of the things that we think about with partnership, it does those and really kind of enhances them in a whole new way. So I think this is going to continue to be a significant part of student athlete experience in college is participating in NIL.
It just creates opportunity for everyone too, John. Just hearing you just makes me think about the local bookstore down the street in State College, and then State Farm utilizing Juju Watkins in national TV spots. It's opportunity for every brand to play a part in the college sports ecosystem, big or small.
True. Yeah, and not that you guys asked me, but I think the biggest change or innovation, I think we have to respect and so do marketers the game day experience for the student athlete. They are in many cases showcased, and they have to be locked in those moments. But getting a connection to them on the non-game days or off seasons and telling their stories or getting opportunities to tell their stories in unique ways, I think that's going to continue to proliferate, right? We've got the highest fan avidity in college over the pro sports, even NFL, more avidity in college. Our fans are insatiable for the appetite for more. And so I think that opportunity for a student athlete to think about that and proliferate more content is going to be meaningful and actually a great opportunity for them for many ways. Okay, guys. So just one question for you, specifically about Playfly Max. You've talked a bit about what's going on in the space. How is it that Playfly is distinguishing ourselves from competitors or from anyone else who's involved in the space to provide value, the athletic directors, to the student athlete, and to the coaches? What are we doing?
Sure. So we're coming at it with a multi-vertical approach. We want to have a significant area of focus be working with our MMR partners. Our MMR partners on campus, they know us, they love us, they've seen the work that we do. We're having conversations with them every day. So to be able to kind of layer in NIL is certainly low-hanging fruit, and where we want to spend time. And the campaigns that they're already doing with us on campus, we can enhance those through NIL. Secondarily, I would say we're uncovering new brands that are outside of the MMR profile, ones that I mentioned, or whether it's fashion, beauty, travel, food, beverage, all these new categories for us to tap into, we can uncover those. And that's a clear part of our strategy is to go outside of the MMR profile. And then third, having programming that is generating incremental revenue. We mentioned how important it is with all of the new expenses these athletic departments have now. If we can create incremental revenue through a variety of programs, whether it's membership or events, et cetera.
No, that's great. And the innovation from you and our Creates in-house agency has been great so far. Even so, yeah, I agree with that assessment. Jason, any additional take on that?
I think the work that John and team are doing just makes my life that much easier when I'm out in market because there's that level of trust. I can go to a brand decision maker and they say, well, how are you doing NIL? How are you activating this campaign? How can I trust that you're going to track down the student athletes that we need and they're going to deliver the content that's part of the contract? Well, John at Playfly Max, this is part of the service that they bring to the table. Not just the concepting, but the actual activation of the how behind making these campaigns come to life. It makes our lives on the multimedia rights side, selling the integrated sponsorship packages that much easier because we have this resource, not just for our brand partners, but for our school partners as well. It makes us much more holistic, much holistic offering in the marketplace when we're out having those conversations.
Thanks for cracking the code here, guys, on that front. It's helpful.